Let's start with our first news. Sean Strickland's team demanded 20% of Khamzat's paycheck after allegations of cheating during the UFC 328 buildup, following a heated weigh-in controversy that continues to spark debate. Eric Nix, Strickland's head coach, spoke with MMA Fighting, explaining their stance on the weight situation and the financial angle behind it. He said it was not only about missing weight, but also about collecting the potential fine money that comes from it. According to him, if Khamzat missed weight, the penalty could have been around 20 to 30% of the purse, which is a significant amount of cash. He added that Strickland would have taken the fight regardless of the situation, even if Khamzat had been several pounds overweight. The coach emphasized that their primary interest was the fine itself, not changing the outcome of the fight or pulling out. He suggested that if Strickland had lost, the discussion around the situation might have been very different in hindsight. Fans continue to debate the weigh-in issue, with many questioning whether Khamzat truly made championship weight or not. The controversy remains one of the most talked about moments leading into UFC 328 and its aftermath in the MMA world. Overall, the situation highlights how financial penalties in combat sports can sometimes become as talked about as the fights themselves, especially when high-profile athletes and major promotions are involved, and when tensions between teams escalate over weight disputes and contractual rules, creating narratives that extend far beyond the octagon and into post-fight discussions among fans, analysts, and coaches who interpret every detail differently, depending on perspective and loyalty within the MMA community, especially when rumors, interviews, and social media reactions amplify every statement made by fighters and coaches after major events across global MMA audiences in real-time coverage and detailed analysis segments. Move on to another news at the start. Daniel Cormier accused Jon Jones during filming of ALF reality, making a controversial statement that sparked immediate attention online. The conversation quickly turned into a heated exchange between the two longtime rivals, as both fighters mocked each other over emotional moments from their past. Cormier referred to Jon Jones in insulting terms, claiming he was gay in a heated rant, repeatedly using the phrase while gesturing toward him during filming. The moment appeared tense as he doubled down on the comments in front of the cameras, escalating the already intense rivalry between them. The discussion then shifted to past incidents, with Jon Jones taking a shot at Daniel Cormier for crying after their 2017 fight. According to the exchange, Jon mocked Cormier's emotional reaction after the loss, bringing up how he broke down following the bout, turning it into a point of ridicule. In response, Cormier fired back by referencing Jon Jones' own emotional press conference after failing a drug test, reminding viewers of a moment where Jon also showed vulnerability. He suggested that Jon had no right to criticize him, pointing out that both of them had shown emotional reactions in different situations throughout their careers. Cormier continued by saying he had seen Jon Jones cry before, including during the aftermath of the drug testing controversy, describing how Jon became emotional when authorities confronted him. The exchange intensified as both men highlighted each other's past struggles, injuries, and personal moments that had previously gone public. The entire confrontation reflected the long-standing rivalry between Daniel Cormier and Jon Jones, filled with tension, insults, and personal digs that extended far beyond the octagon. It showcased how their history continues to fuel public debates and media coverage, even outside of actual competition, as both fighters revisit old controversies and personal failures in front of cameras during interviews and reality show filming. Overall, the rivalry remains one of the most intense in MMA history, with both athletes continuing to trade verbal shots long after their fights ended. Their history of championship clashes, public arguments, and media confrontations has kept fans divided, as every interview or appearance reignites debate. Even years later, comments from either side continue to circulate across social media, adding new layers to an already deep rivalry that shows no sign of cooling down in the sport today, continuing globally across MMA conversations and media coverage. Move on to another news. At the start, the winner of Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry could fight Conor after it was announced that Nate Diaz will face Mike Perry on the MVP Netflix card this Saturday. discussion around a potential trilogy fight between Diaz and Conor took a serious hit. But as the May 16th card nears, both Nate Diaz and Mike Perry have continued calling for big fights beyond this matchup. Diaz has made it clear he still wants to return to the UFC to face Conor under the promotion again after this bout, keeping hopes of a long-awaited trilogy alive in his mind. Meanwhile, Mike Perry also believes he could step into the octagon with Conor if he defeats Nate Diaz, and he expressed confidence during a recent interview with MMA Junkie's Danny Seeger. He stated that Conor is always talking while others are fighting, and he said he would love to take that opportunity, adding that he already took the trilogy narrative from Nate and now wants to move forward after May 16th. According to Perry, a fight between him and Conor at 170 pounds would be ideal, and he believes he would be able to shut him down if the matchup becomes reality. While some believe the UFC may not pursue Nate Diaz if he loses this bout, especially if he suffers a knockout defeat, others still see interesting possibilities for crossover fights involving Conor and Mike Perry in different scenarios. The conversation has also drawn attention to other fighters and future plans within the division, as speculation continues to grow about major names making final runs or last appearances in the UFC. Elsewhere, Ilia Topuria has also stated that he wants his final UFC fight to be a major event, potentially targeting the biggest names available, as he considers his last run inside the sport. His comments add another layer to ongoing discussions about retirement fights and legacy matchups across the MMA world, where fans continue to debate dream fights and promotional possibilities. With so many potential storylines developing at once, attention remains on how the UFC will position these athletes moving forward, especially as fan demand for high-profile matchups continues to rise across divisions and promotional platforms worldwide. This keeps the debate alive among analysts, coaches, and fans following the sport globally across all major MMA discussions. Today, continuing worldwide interest remains growing. Move on to another news at the start. Georges St. Pierre has not competed in nearly a decade, but discussion continues about whether the male gen could return in some forms, such as grappling or wrestling. Recently, Meekbon from Majunkie asked him about the possibility, and GSP made it clear that while he's open to competing again, it will not happen anytime soon. He explained that he still receives frequent requests for fights across boxing, wrestling, and grappling, but he's currently dealing with a minor back issue that has limited his ability to compete. This summer headed that he is not retired in spirit, but he's focused on other commitments, including building a YouTube channel and working on several projects. She emphasized that any return would have to be on his own terms and at the right time for his schedule and physical condition. GSP mentioned that if he does compete again, it would more likely be later in the year, possibly in the fall, rather than immediately. He stated that he does not close the door on competition, but timing is the main factor preventing a comeback right now. He also expressed that after years away from fighting, he wants to be fully prepared and motivated before stepping back into any competitive environment. His comments have sparked renewed discussion among fans about what kind of return could make sense, whether MMA grappling exhibitions or wrestling showcases. For now, however, he remains focused on recovery and personal projects rather than an immediate return to combat sports. Speaking of wrestling, the conversation continues around how light veterans like him could still draw massive attention even outside the octagon. For now, fans continue to debate whether a grappling exhibition or wrestling super fight would be the most realistic path for his return. Given his long layoff from MAC competition, analysts believe that even an appearance from GSPW would still generate massive global interest due to his legendary status and clean fighting reputation. Many also point out that his strategic approach and discipline could translate well into controlled grappling environments, making any potential comeback highly anticipated across combat sports audiences worldwide. Meanwhile, GSP remains patient and focused on long-term health goals while evaluating future opportunities carefully before making any official announcement about competition in the coming months and beyond, as she continues to move on to another news at the start. Ilia Topuria wants his last UFC fight in Spain, as Dana White has repeatedly said he is not a big fan of holding UFC events in stadium settings. But if Ilia continues to establish himself as one of the best fighters of this generation, Dana White may eventually have no choice. Recently, Ilia sat down with Sports World YT ahead of his fight with Justin Gaethje, where he was asked whether he still dreams of competing at the Bernabeu Stadium in Spain. a venue closely tied to his personal life and career ambitions. Not only did Ilya confirm that the dream is still alive, he made it clear that he wants it to be his retirement fight, describing it as a dream scenario he has held for years. He said, "That's still a dream, of course. I would love to make my last fight in Spain in the Bernabeu Stadium. It has been a long time since I fought in Spain, so I want to do it. Walking out with mariachi music, everyone singing. It would be crazy." Fans and analysts reacted strongly to his comments, with many calling the idea of a stadium event in Spain one of the most electrifying possible settings for a UFC card in Europe. However, Dana White's past reluctance to stage events in large stadiums remains a major question mark, even as Ilya continues to rise in popularity and global recognition. Still, if Ilya keeps winning and defending his status as a top contender, discussions about a Bernabeu Stadium event could become more realistic in the future. At just under 29 years old, Ilya still has significant time left in his career, which adds even more speculation about when or if such a historic event could actually take place. This ongoing storyline has added even more excitement to Ilya's career trajectory, as fans continue to debate whether the UFC will eventually embrace stadium events in Europe for a fighter of his magnitude, especially if he continues to deliver dominant performances inside the octagon. With growing international attention and strong fan demand building around his name, many believe that a Spain-based mega event could redefine European MMA history, while others remain cautious due to logistical concerns. And Dana White's long-standing promotional preferences, still the idea continues to gain momentum across global MMA discussions. Move on to another news at the start. Ciryl Gane frustrated Bonskras. Tom Aspinall's situation ever since the eye poke situation happened to Aspinall has come out calling Ciryl Gane eater and expressing anger. Now, Gane is reportedly also frustrated by the whole situation, and since it is still not clear when Aspinall will fight again after undergoing eye surgeries, Gane is set to face Alex Pereira for an interim heavyweight title. At the UFC White House card on the 14th of June, ahead of the bout, Gane spoke with the New York Post, and during the interview, he was asked how frustrating it was to have his fight with Aspinall. Called off since he was winning the first round, Gane acknowledged that he also was not happy with what transpired, but has stopped short of claiming Aspinall exaggerated his injuries. Here is what Gane had to say. Was a little bit frustrated because I thought it was possible to continue the fight, and because I was thinking about all the sacrifices I did before this fight. But this is a sport. This is okay, as Ed. Just after the fight, we're note in the eyes of to Aspinall, so we cannot judge that. Maybe he cannot see like he's Ed Zonoyam not judging. Now, sure, maybe referencing a spinal eyes in this context was not the greatest choice of words, but Gane's response was still respectful, right? Where Aspinall and his fans may have issues was when he was asked if he's changing anything to help ensure his fingers do not gouge opponents. And not only did he say no, he said it while laughing. Unfortunately, this has happened at every event. This is not something special. Unfortunately, I learned my middle kick, and when you learned the middle kick, you also learned the hands, and the first thing coming was his faces. So it tried to push his face, my fingers just sweep. Don Sai said this is of course, this does not mean that Gane does not feel bad about what happened at UFC 321, but fans continue to debate the incident. Tensions remain high between both sides, while reactions keep building across May community discussions and media coverage worldwide. Ronda Rousey goes off on Khamzat in latest interview reactions across fight world coverage continues trending now. Move on to another news. At the start, Georges St. Pierre talked about Khamzat versus Strickland during a recent conversation with MMA Junkie, reminding fans that the best fighter does not always win. He explained that many people believe the better athlete is guaranteed to win, but in reality, that is not how MMA works. According to him, there are many variables that affect a fight, including timing, preparation, mindset, and execution on the night of the event. He stated that even the best fighter in the world must still perform at their highest level on fight night, or the result can go the other way. GSP added that while he believes Khamzat is overall a better fighter than Sean Strickland, that does not guarantee victory, pointing out that Strickland was able to win on that specific night and could potentially do it again in a rematch. His comments highlighted the unpredictable nature of MMA and how outcomes are never fixed by skill alone. The discussion then shifted toward Khamzat's fight strategy, with some analysts questioning decisions made by his corner during the bout. Drew Dober also shared his opinion on social media, where he criticized the idea of telling a fighter they are ahead on the scorecards during a competitive fight. He argued that hearing such information mid-fight can change an athlete's mindset and reduce urgency. According to him, When a fighter believes they are winning, they may become more cautious, pull back from pressure, or stop pushing for a finish as aggressively as they normally would. Dober suggested that corners should focus on encouraging constant pressure and a winning mentality, rather than giving updates that might lead to overconfidence or hesitation. This sparked debate among fans and analysts about how much information